Welcome to Out of Spec Motoring. My name is Ben, and this is the new Genesis GV80. In fact, this is the little one, the 4-cylinder. For styling, they've done a nice job. The quad beam LED lights are very attractive. They are bright at night. They do not have any swivel functionality, but they're good at illuminating the road. You've got an integrated side marker turn signal right there on the side of the car. And so these are 20-inch wheels, but this is maybe one of the first cars I've seen in a while where 20-inch wheels look, quite small on it. It's you almost need 21 or maybe even 22 to really get the full effect of this design work here. The grille I know has been talked about a lot. I think it's good. Make your own opinion there. I do have maybe one comment. A lot of cars have this, so it's not really a negative, but there's your radar sensor for adaptive cruise control. So far with rain and leaves and stuff, nothing's blocked it, which is fine. But I wonder if they couldn't have found somewhere else in that bumper, maybe in a painted surface, to hide that, because I know Land Rover can do it, I know Tesla can do it, but I don't know why every other automaker has a very visible radar for some reason. So that's more of a general automotive thought at this point than specific to the Genesis. The side profile is excellent. You've got a very nice chrome highlight there that kind of helps make it not feel so empty on the side. Actually, one of the few cars where I would say the use of chrome is quite tasteful. This is an interesting bit though. I think most people probably have no problem with this. I don't dislike it. I kind of like this where the window kicks up. However, I've seen quite a few people say they don't like it now. So I wonder why that is. I don't know many cars that do that. I think it's sort of has a bit of an infinity style there, and maybe that's what that's coming from, where people may not love it. Tail lights though. Oh, these are excellent. These look great in the night, great in the day. Got a nice depth to it, as you can see. Those are really sharp to see any time of day. It does have one kind of unique feature. I love where they've positioned the button to open your trunk. It is actually right there, right on the window stock. So you don't have to go looking for it. You don't have to feel around and get your fingers all dirty underneath where the license plate is. I think that's a good spot for it. The only other car I've ever seen that has had a button in that position is the Porsche Macan. So maybe a very unique position. I don't know. If you know any other cars that have it there, I'd be curious to hear about it. That's definitely a sharp looking car all around. I think they've done a good job, even with the detailing, the panels, the creases where they've got body lines, like the hood here. That panel crease is right on the line of the car, so it kind of hides it well. So there's been a lot of thought put into this design for sure. Typically when you walk up with a key, I've just locked it so it's not going to do it, but mirrors fold out, it knows your presence. And there's your interior. This is the kind of highlight for this car visually. This blue leather with the blue paint is a very nice taste. 2-spoke steering wheel, which is very much a love or hate, but I quite like it. I have no problem with it at all. It's a very, very nice place to be. This is the perfect car to sit in. It's maybe not the perfect car in the world for driving, but you can never complain about comfort and toys. You're well taken care of in this. Another kind of unique feature. You usually see this on luxury sedans, but this car seems to have it. Lets you move the passenger seat from here. Oddly enough, you can also do it from the touchscreen. So there's like 3 ways to move that passenger seat, which is kind of amusing. Got a very nice split compartment there. Your phone wireless charger, no USB-C ports. Would really like to see that. And then I love this little cubby. That's where I've been constantly forgetting my phone this entire time. Every time I leave the car, I look for my phone and have to walk back to find it there. One kind of fun feature of the GV80 is with all of the driver assistance functions you get, the key has Smart Park, as it's been called in the commercials. So press and hold the remote start. There it goes. And then you can press and hold your direction. Car will put itself into gear. And this is the other issue I found with it. It works, but you have to be quite close to the car here. We'll try it again, see if it's happy now. Now it's happy. So you have to really be standing next to the car for this one to work. See, I've just stepped back and that's too far for it. You almost, it's like walking a dog. If you have a leash that's more than 6 feet, it seems to stop it. So again, we'll get closer here. But it does have one kind of unique thing I've seen, which it will stop with the sensors, and occasionally it'll try and steer around an obstacle. It's hit or miss on that one, but kind of a fun feature to have. All right, so now that we've got the settings out of the way, first impressions driving the GV80. We've left it in comfort mode. We're not getting into any of the driving modes just yet. It's very comfortable, very quiet, as kind of expected. And then this powertrain is the one you've probably not seen as much of. This is the 4-cylinder. The only real issue anyone could maybe level at it is that it's not the most refined of sounds. You know, when you get into it, you'll hear it a little more. But this car's main usage, just kind of cruising around, taking advantage of the auto hold so you don't have to use your foot when you're at a red light, just being comfortable and in a nice spot to be, this is a really good success in that area for Genesis. And I think people are going to really see that once they drive these cars. Steering wheel, this kind of unique 2-spoke, it feels like a unique place. The ambient lighting is very adjustable. You can pick your own color. It's actually got a custom color option in there. And then this screen, very thin bezels. That's something a lot of cars get wrong. We're very much, it's actually, here's another good feature. When the vehicle in front of you starts moving and you're not paying attention at the drive-thru because you're texting on your phone, it lets you know. This is a computer. It's got Wi-Fi, has HDMI, USB, you can run an operating system. They're $5 now. It's a Raspberry Pi for those interested. And the reason I bring this up is that technology is getting very cheap. And I think that is no better example of that would be this car here. You can actually get a lot of the features that were previously reserved for a luxury car in a car at this price point in the mid $50,000 range, because technology is much cheaper to integrate than thousands and thousands of hours of suspension tuning, more advanced powertrain, you know, features, power delivery, hybrid systems, things like that. So this car really is it feels like underneath you've got a very competent but still a very value-oriented platform with all the benefits of material science, nicer touch points, things like that, that, you know, they've spent money where you should, where you touch things, where you interact with things. But I think they've gone a little crazy with features almost through software, because they're trying to come up with ways to add as many options to that list as they can, given the price. You've got this really nice display on the dashboard. It has very thin bezels. I'm a huge fan of that. It's about time that that has happened in a modern car, because even you get in the BMWs, they've got these big thick borders, and it all looks a little bit 2012, to be, you know, truthful. And that's not that far ago in car terms, but with smartphones, with devices that we're used to interacting with, think about 2012. The iPhone had only been out for just a couple years. We were on iPhone 3GS, I think, at that point. So it's kind of nice to see that in the, you know, segment this car is in, and not just reserved for the very high-end options that most other brands, you know, where they can afford to do this. It doesn't actually cost money. That's the nice thing about it. It's just shrinking it down and utilizing the technology available to you in a way that makes it seem more premium than it is. And that's what this car does great. It's got everything you would think of when it comes to driver assistance. We'll jump into that here. It's got your active lane keep. It can actually make a lane change for you. On this dashboard display here, you'll actually see the cars that are on the lanes around you as you're driving. Very similar to something that someone might have seen in a Tesla if you've been into Tesla before, where you've got all the cars around it. It's not to that same, you know, positional definition, but it's quite cool to see that in a car. And that actually, I think for a lot of people, is going to be a really exciting thing to see for the first time, to actually have that extra confidence that their driver assistance system is seeing the things they see and watching out for what they are seeing in front of them. It gives you a nice bit of trust in the system compared to normal. But everything is almost configurable, maybe to a fault, I would say. You know, everything from our smart cruise control, it can be based off of the mode setting, or you can create a driving style for it based off of the distance, the aggression for acceleration, and how quickly it reacts to braking situations. It's honestly, I think some of this is too much for people, because they're going to get in here, and if you want to just set every setting the way you do, I was going to make a video showing how I would set the car up. It's an hour and a half long. It just doesn't make sense to go through all of this as a normal driver. I think, you know, there's something to be said for calibrating it in a way that should meet 95% of what drivers want out of the car, and I don't know why they decided to give everyone that much customization. You can adjust the warning timing, the volume, the haptic through the steering wheel to let you know that you're straying from your lane, but there's about 15 or 16 different settings in there, and I think no better area shows this than if we go to just the seats here. You can have it set so when you touch the buttons on the side, not click them, but just rest your finger against the switches on the side of your seat, it'll pop up on the screen. I'll turn it on here and tell me which button I'm hitting. That's quite handy. I think that's a nice touch. You know, if you're reaching around down there, you don't know what you're looking for. Once you're used to the car, you probably don't need it, truthfully. But it does have this thing, and this is one that I do think is quite useful, which is the driver posture. And so you can actually put in things like your height, other information, and it helps you find, one, the seating position that's good for you, and helps work with you to get your posture in a better situation, which is a nice touch, especially if you spend a lot of time in the car. It's probably worth going through that setup. You can adjust the balance of the heated seats, how much you want on the back, how much you want on the bottom. You have the easy entrance for the car, so the seat moves back, the steering wheel moves back. But not just that, you get to pick how far the seat goes back. Do you want the steering wheel or just the seat? Both. The passenger seat has easy entry, which I find quite unusual. I've never seen that in a car. And it's not like it's hard to get in and out of a vehicle. So every single thing has like 70 features for it. There's the ergo motion seat, as they call it, which can do this with your butt to help keep your muscles moving around so you don't get sore. It does the same in the back. I wouldn't call it a massage seat, but it's kind of somewhere in that territory. It's getting very close to it. And it just feels like for every setting in this car, there's way more than you would expect. You know, if we get into just the door and lift gate, there's about 7 or 8 settings here alone. You can adjust the speed at which the power lift gate opens. I've never seen a car have an option for the trunk speed. I don't know why you would need it. I think you'd always just wanted to go fast, truthfully. You can adjust the height. That is quite a useful feature. But it just gets into, I think maybe what they've done here is they've gone a little crazy with some of the customization of this car to help convince someone that it maybe is a luxury car. And what I think some of that effort could have been better spent on, and you know, it's probably different teams, but I still think they run into this weird trap of, if you look at the list of features, there's tons. You've got heated, cooled seats. You've got all these driver safety systems. You can configure it to your delight. But at the same time, the way this car rides is good, but it's not great. It does get a little unsettled by some bumps in kind of weirder ways. And you know, if you're driving down the road and you hit a bump, you'll kind of feel the rear just shuffle to the left or right a little bit. It almost feels a little bit like a solid rear axle. The ride is okay, but it is not Mercedes, Audi, BMW, Porsche levels of ride. It's you can get a sense that maybe in the suspension there is not as much money being spent there. And this is the 4-cylinder, so I don't believe, with what I can tell, this car does not have that adaptive suspension that's looking at the road to predict the bumps and adjust in advance. Perhaps that does help, but since it's still going to have the fixed rate springs, I don't think it's going to make as big a difference as it might make in some other cars like an S-Class where you have the air suspension that can jump in and assist. I just want to give some final thoughts after spending a little more time driving this on our lovely rainy day we have it here. This car, at first impression, you get smacked in the face with a textbook full of features. It has really everything I think a buyer is going to look for in a car like this. Safety, comfort, functionality. There are tons of features in that area, and they're all very usable. Some questionably unnecessary, but they're there at least. And for as thick as that book is of features, that's going to kind of shock a buyer initially and almost maybe overwhelm them to an extent. The driving experience is a little thinner. that's sort of I think the easiest way. It's not like it's an unrefined experience, but it isn't to that very high level of polish that some of the other brands are able to offer. Although most of those other brands are not offering that experience in this price point. Although they're getting close right now, I would say. I think the final way to kind of view this car is if you're someone looking at this car, you're trying to find out if you want it, I'm going to guess that you will like it and you should go drive one, of course. If this is maybe the first time you're hearing about it and you're intrigued, I would still go look at it, because if you're entering the luxury market, this is a really interesting way to do it with a lot of style and presence. And I think for most buyers who are in that kind of entering the luxury market, if you haven't had tons and tons of exposure to those higher end cars, you probably won't know what you're missing. I think the ride could be the only area that a shopper who is in this area could potentially be dissatisfied, because it's not bad. It's just a lot of the smaller imperfections in the surface is what you'll feel. But I think you'll like it. Definitely go check one out. Kind of see if you can even get your hands on one. I know they're quite hard to get a hold of in the North American market at the moment, but I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. Thanks, and look forward to seeing you on another review and Out of Spec.